Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Brad, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Tsuki Kirei episode 4. Now last week I did my review of episode 3 and you guys seemed to enjoy that quite a bit. So I thought I'd come back and I'd discuss my thoughts on episode 4 which aired earlier this morning. So once again I thought it was a good episode. I don't think it was as good of an episode as last week's one was. Mainly because this week took a more generic approach to the romantic aspect of the show. And I'll get into more detail on that later on. But we start off with Akane and Kotora and all of their classmates at the bullet train station because they're going on their class trip, which was referenced in last week's episode when Chinatsu and Akane were talking about Hira, basically, when they were saying about, oh, she should ask Hira out or she should go out with Hira. So it's nice to see we're getting that plot continuation happening straight away. Now, immediately as soon as the episode loaded up, I was like, oh god, the worst has happened. The worst thing happened with Kotora and Akane's confession scene. Kotora walks in and we finally get some awkward tension between the two. They both sort of just stare at each other and then they both get a bit flustered really. And then we get a flashback to what happened after the events of episode 3. Basically she said that she needs some time to think about it, which is understandable. It's the way that I thought that the show was going to deal with it, and it's definitely a good way considering these characters and how unconfident they are with each other, which is something that gets brought up later on in the episode, which I thought was really, really nice. It all makes sense, and this is exactly how I thought it was going to go, and so far it's perfect, I think, in terms of their development and how quickly their relationship is developing. But we get onto the trip, and they're not allowed to take their phones with them, which is kind of weird in this day and age, but all the students are trying to find ways of hiding their phone from the teachers. I believe some of Kotora's friends hide it in a packet of crisps, and Akane's friends, they all hide in their underwear, which is just weird. And some of the other guys in the class try and call them out on it, but some of their friends stop them, which is good because I don't really want to see Akane and all that lot getting in trouble this early into the show. It doesn't really seem like her character to be someone that gets into trouble. But they finally get to their destination, and then we just get some very generic touristy type things of them, you know, taking photos with each other outside of some of the Japanese architecture, stuff like that. And the more interesting things sort of happen towards the middle and later end of the episode. So, in the later part of the episode, we see both Akane and Kotaru looking at their phones, and it's obvious that Kotaru and Akane haven't actually talked since the events of the last episode. They haven't said a text to each other, haven't said a word to each other in person either. And Akane is starting to feel inside a bit of guilt. She's constantly saying throughout this episode, I still haven't answered him, which is obviously very, very true, and it's clear that she's putting this guilt on herself. But that's where Kotaru comes in, and he sends her a message during the middle of the night saying, do you want to meet up tomorrow during free time, go and do something? He's trying to find a way to say it without it sounding, you know, like a formal proposal, like a formal date or something like that. A couple of his friends try and steal his phone, and they successfully do so, and they successfully see that it's a girl that he's been texting. And he then runs out of the building, runs out of his room, where his friends are at, and bumps into the teacher and gets his phone confiscated. So unfortunately has to send the message without like double checking everything, which you already know something's going to go wrong just from that moment. We cut over to Akane and her friends. She's not with Chinatsu right now, she's with a different group of friends, and they're talking about relationships, about people they're interested in, other people in the class, and they all ask Akane whether she's got someone she's interested in, at which point she says yes. Now, the only person they know that she's interested in, or could be interested in, is Hira, who is the big jock guy from the track team we saw in the last episode, who wasn't in this episode at all, which I think is brilliant. I think if he is in next episode, it's going to be quite good, because there's now this sort of confusion between everyone, because they think that Akane is really in love with him. They then ask her, has he asked you out? And then she says yes, but before she can like tell them that it wasn't Hira, some of the male classmates budge into their room and start talking with them and stuff like that. So she's now in this situation where she's like too scared to say anything to her friends, because especially to this lot of friends, because it's a different friend base from her other friends. Like, she's not with Chinatsu, who is probably one of her more better and closer friends, I think, and that's definitely very apparent throughout this episode. We see Akane and Chinatsu discussing about buying gifts for their fellow club mates, for the fellow track club members, and they're going through the shop looking at so many things, and then Kotaru comes to that exact same shop, and Akane sort of just hides behind the assortment of gifts in the store, while sort of spying, and then Chinatsu goes up to Kotaro and starts talking with him, and you can see at this moment that she is getting jealous. She's getting jealous of what is her best friend talking to the person she potentially has a crush on, which is really cute to see. We haven't really seen her like this before, and obviously now that she knows that his feelings, she's, you know, more vulnerable than ever, really. Kotaro then sees her out the corner of his eye when she's running away, because those two seem to be getting on very, very well, a bit like more than they do. That's the thing. That's the worrying thing for her, I think, is that Chinatsu and Kotaro get on a lot better than they do. They're able to talk more, and I think that's purely because of the fact that Kotaro doesn't have this romantic interest in her, which makes sense. But anyway, back to later on in the episode, we then cut to the next day, where everyone's having breakfast, I believe, and they have some free time. So finally their free time has come around, and Akane's friends are trying to get her to go shopping with them. She spends the day with them, she gets drinks, she gets some food and stuff like that. And Kotaro's like just throughout the entire day trying to find the moment to talk to her, to tell her that, you know, his phone was taken away and he doesn't know what her answer was. So throughout the day we just see Akane just sort of fidgeting and really looking uncomfortable, where she's trying to decide whether to meet up with him or not. And eventually her friends do the decision for her. They leave her alone because they can see that she's like worried about something, and you know, they even think it's a date. And they let her go. They let her go and meet up with Kotaro outside one of the shopping districts, I believe. Thing is, in traditional anime style, he's not there, and she's there. But the thing is, he really is there. He's at a different entrance to the building. There's like 4 or 5 different entrances to this one big building. So you then have that very generic scene where they're sort of just, you know, missing each other as they're walking past each other in different directions. And it starts to rain. It starts to get really, really heavy with rain. So Akane gives up all hope. She thinks that he turned her down. And luckily, Kotaro finds Chinatsu and asks if he can borrow her phone to call her, although he doesn't say who he wants to call, and he obviously doesn't know her number off by heart. But Chinatsu knows. Chinatsu saw the way that he looked at Akane, and she can tell that he has a crush on her, which really opens up things with Chinatsu. She can really start teasing Akane now with this fact that she knows. And finally they get talking, and Akane and Kotaro finally meet up, and basically she says, "Why were you late?" And he wants to tell her like the legit truth, that his phone got taken away, but he sort of can't. I don't know why he can't, but she then says, why Chinatsu's phone of all people? And you can just see by the look on her face, she is incredibly jealous right now. She's got to know that Kotaro doesn't feel anything for her, and we're then left with this sort of awkward moment of the two of them just standing, you know, next to each other, facing forward. And it's very reminiscent of last week's ending scene as well, which is why I like it so much. She says something along the lines of, how can we, you know, be boyfriend and girlfriend? We can hardly talk to each other. And then he's like, yeah, I know. And at this point, it's just like, it's really depressing and really saddening, because you want those two to get together. Like, 100%, I don't think anyone watching the show doesn't. But it's kind of heartbreaking, really. And then she says, I want to talk with you more. And then he asks, is that your final answer? And she said yes. So not the answer that he wanted per se. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was sort of a we'll see. I think that was the best way forward from it. It was a, let's try talking more. Let's, you know, build ourselves up, build our, you know, relationship up further. And then once we're comfortable, we can then say yes or no definitively, which I think is the best way forward. And I hope they get there sooner rather than later. As I said in last week's episode, I did like that they kind of ramped up the pace a bit, but this definitely feels more in line with their characters. But now I'm wondering what will happen next week, because next week there's no sort of events that we can foresee coming. They've been sort of teased by the show, and I think we're just going to get more of them out on their trip. I think we'll hopefully get to see both of them, you know, going out with each other and, you know, just talking and having some fun, which I think will be nice. I hope we get to see some interaction between Akane's other friends and Hira, especially if they start asking him about if he asked out Akane or not, and see like the dynamic with that, because then you might get like her friends come back to Akane saying you were lying and stuff like that, and then she finally has to reveal to everyone that she got asked out by Kotaro. And I just can't wait to see where this show goes. Every episode, like whenever it just pops up on Crunchyroll, it's a nice surprise, because I'm never expecting it. So that's gonna be it for today's review / discussion on Tsuki Kirei. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on this week's episode. Let me know what you think will happen in next week's episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. See you then.